What's going on, everybody? I'm Primetime, and welcome to the Primetime Podcast. I'm rolling solo on this episode. Usually I have my co-host, MIA Dolphins, with me. He will be back for the next podcast, but this time around there was some timing. This month has flown by, and we usually do a podcast every single month. Well, here we are towards the end of this month, and like I said, time just got away, and I need to get a podcast in. Not really prepared for a whole lot. Usually we talk, if you're familiar with the podcast, we talk about gaming news. Sometimes we'll talk a little bit about sports and whatever, but since I didn't have a whole lot of time to get anything going for this month's podcast, we're pretty much just going to talk about Nintendo, past Nintendo consoles, everything from, everything, literally, the NES, the SNES, the N64. We're going to talk about the GameCube, the Wii, and the Wii U. We're not going to go with the Switch yet, because we don't know a whole lot about it yet. It's still fresh. It's still new. So we'll wait a couple years before we head into that. But like I said, my co-host, MIA Dolphins, will not be with me here today. He's had a death in the family. So I just ask that all of you listening to me right now, send your thoughts and prayers his way, his family's way, as they go through this very rough time. If you've lost a loved one, chances are that you have. It happens. It's life, and it is very hard. It's very hard. It's hard on your mind. It's just emotionally grieving. It's hard. So pray for my boy MIA Dolphins 32 and his family as they go through this hard time. But before we get started, I just want to tell you guys about the great sponsor of Primetime 21st Gaming, the proud sponsor of Primetime 21st Gaming, and this podcast is brought to you by Catalyst Mints. Check Catalyst Mints out, guys. The link is in the description below. Be sure to use the link in the description below. It lets them know that I sent you, and it's a win-win-win. It's a win for you, a win for me, and a win for them. So be sure to check out Catalyst Mints. So here we go. Let's start with the NES.
Will you be the one to witness the birth of the incredible Nintendo Entertainment System? The one to play with Rob, the extraordinary video robot, batteries not included. He helps you tackle even the toughest challenge. Will you be the first to raise the incredibly accurate Zapper and play games like Duck Hunt or action-packed Hogan's Alley and high-flying Kung Fu, each sold separately? Will you be the one to experience the Nintendo Entertainment System? Comes with Rob, Zapper, Control Deck, 2 controllers, Gyromite, and Duck Hunt.
Alright, so since the video game crash of 1983, and if you're not familiar with that, definitely look it up online, or even check out the movie Game Over. It's like a documentary style movie, but check it out. You'll get everything you need to know there. Pretty much the video game industry was dead. It was dead. There was nothing left of it. And then we have Nintendo coming out of the darkness, raising that sword. And they released in North America with the NES, October 18th, 1985. Now, I believe they narrowed that down, the dates, because I don't think anybody really knew for sure. I think they said October 18th, 1985 was like around the time that it showed up in New York or something like that. I'm not real sure. But over its lifespan, worldwide, it sold 61.91 million. And I think it sold so well because the graphics were something we have never seen at that time. Maybe in the arcade, of course you had there were better graphics in the arcade, of course, but I'm talking Atari. Before the NES, that's really anything, that's all anybody had was an Atari 2600 and whatnot, because, alright, here's my best, I don't know if you'll be able to know what I'm talking about through an audio podcast, but anyway, if you've played original Pitfall for Atari 2600, the side scrolling is not very smooth, where on the NES the side scrolling was very smooth. Like, for instance, Super Mario Bros. You go all the way to the right of the screen and it just flows. But if you're playing Pitfall for 2600, when you get to that screen, when you're ready to go to the next screen, it like cuts and then the next screen pops up. It's so, you'll have to check it out. It's hard for me to explain over audio. I could probably show you with my hands. I'm actually doing it with my hands right now. You can't see me though, but I think the NES had smooth scrolling. Well, majority of the time. I think Ice Climber didn't have really good, didn't have smooth scrolling, but majority of the time, the NES had smooth scrolling. Now, some release titles, to name a few, were like the black box games like 10-Yard Fight, Excite Bike, Super Mario, Baseball, Clue Clue Land, Gyromite, Stack Up, Donkey Kong Jr. Math, and Duck Hunt. And those black box games, if you look like that's just what, you know, Atari was kind of bad for this dude, but so was the NES. There was some NES games. I'm thinking like Dragon Warrior and I'm trying to Legacy of the Wizard, I think that's what it is. Sometimes the box art on these games looked so much better than the game itself. And I mean, you'll have that, but what I liked about the black box games is they were pretty much the graphics of the game. I mean, yeah, they were probably detailed a little bit. The pixels looked a little better, and it was highly detailed. But I think it was pretty close to what the game actually was. Now Atari, on the other hand, you know, I'm not bashing Atari. It may seem like I'm doing that, but I promise I'm not. I love Atari 2600. I love Haunted House. I love Pitfall. I actually like Atari 2600 Pac-Man, where not a lot of people did. But anyway, now Atari 2600 Donkey Kong is a whole nother story. But all in all, there was 712 licensed games for the NES. Some good, some bad, but you'll have that, you know. Some with controls that were good, and some not so good. Like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde is a popular, well, I shouldn't say popular. A popular bad game. People just want to try it to see how bad it actually is. The controls are awful. But like Mario, if you're playing original Super Mario Bros., if you play Super Mario Bros., when you're in the air with Mario, you can use the D-pad, the left and the right buttons, and you can steer Mario's jump. Where if you're playing like Castlevania, you're not going to be able to steer, you know, any jump. When you jump, you're committed to that jump. You're in the air. It's realistic when you think about it, because you're not really going to be able to change your body in midair, whether you want to go left or right while you're falling. So, anyways, that was, like I said, good controls, bad controls. You'll have that. That's with every console. But some accessories for the NES. You had the Zapper gun. I had a Zapper gun. I think I had 3 of them when I was younger. I have 2 now. I have 1 in the box, and then I just have 1 just in case I feel like in case I want to feel like playing Hogan's Alley or Duck Hunt, you know. The power pad, which was to get you up and active, and I actually think Dance Dance Revolution, those pads were, I think the power pad inspired the Dance Dance Revolution pads. That's probably how they got their idea. I could be wrong. But then there was the Miracle Piano, which I have never seen one. I mean, I've seen pictures of them and videos, but I've never seen one out in person. And actually, I think it either came with the game or you could get the game called Miracle, and it pretty much just teach you, you know, you could play piano on it. There was a couple other games for it as well. Rob the Robot. Now, Rob the Robot, I think, plays a very important factor with the NES success, because, like I said, well, first let me tell you what Rob is. Rob was a robotic, I don't know. Rob was a robot, okay? He worked with Gyromite and Stack Up, and I think those were the only 2 games that he worked with. Well, anyway, the video game industry, like I said, was dead after 1983. So when Nintendo is pitching this to retail stores, you know, they're probably not biting on it because they're like, well, that industry is dead. Why would we put all of our eggs in that basket? And, well, anyway, when they sold the NES, the first NES bundle came with Rob the Robot. And it was titled the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System. And I think when they looked at it as an entertainment system, it wasn't so much looked at as, you know, oh, this is just a video game console. No, this is a toy too. It's got a robot in it that, you know. So I think that helped out a lot as well with the different retail stores. But then you have the Power Glove. Very iconic. Didn't work so well. Neither did Rob. But I gotta tell you, I just got my first Power Glove just a few days ago, and I put it on just to try it on, and because I have it up for display. I'm never going to use it because I heard it's very complicated, but put it on my arm, and I gotta tell you what, I felt pretty cool wearing the Power Glove. I mean, it's awesome. It's an awesome design, and they definitely had a really cool idea, but I don't think it, you know, I've never played one. From what I've heard, though, they don't work like they should. And I think Rob was the same, but you gotta start somewhere. But anyways, it's still iconic to this day. I think the movie The Wizard, which is pretty much one big, long-running commercial for Nintendo, it's in there. But if you can find a Power Glove, get a Power Glove. They're awesome. I mean, even to display it. If you have a game room, put it in your game room. I love mine. It looks awesome. Then there's the NES Advantage. I love this. It is like an arcade-like joystick. I mean, I love it. I mean, they show like pictures of kids like laying down on the floor, like laying down on their stomachs, and because it's flat on the bottom, it's got to lay on something. I mean, you can put it on your lap, but if you want to be comfortable playing, you should probably like get one of those fold-out tables and set it up in front of you and play it that way. But I love the Advantage. The Advantage was awesome. We got some shout outs here in the chat. We got my boy PSXBNIN. He is moderating the chat for me, so shout out to PSXBNIN. Master Chief Master, what's up? And here we got Bullet Billy 43. We got Betaking. Oh wow, I just so messed that up. This is actually Beta King. Wow, I am a clown. Loot for items, basically Bailey. We've got Capital Zero, Tenet Bros, and Trip Switch 6, and I see a lot of you are writing in the comments right now, and I'm sure he'll listen to the podcast much later. Maybe if he's working or something, he can put it in and listen to it. But I see so many of you are saying prayers, sending prayers Dolphin's way, prayers for MIA and his family. I know what it's like. Prayers for you, my friend. I see a lot of these, and he would very much appreciate that. I wish honestly that he could see these right now, but I really keep sending them in, guys. And I will definitely put you guys out there for saying that, because I know it would mean the world to him. So Jocelyn, thank you for stopping in. We got Madison Sierra, and finally we've got Justin Lambert. So thank you guys for stopping in, and we're going to continue on the NES. I know I'm spending a little bit too much time on the NES, because I mean, all I want to do is just come in here and talk about some of the, you know, a little bit about each Nintendo console. But we're going to move on to the SNES very soon. But I just want to talk a little bit more about the NES, like some popular titles. You had Super Mario 1, 2, and 3, Zelda 1 and 2, well, the original Legend of Zelda and Zelda 2, Metroid, Castlevania 1, 2, and 3, Ninja Gaiden 1, 2, and 3, Mega Man 2, Tecmo Bowl was a lot of fun. I remember playing Tecmo Bowl a lot. Contra The Double Dragon games, I think I like the first one the best. However, I think 2 is really the fan favorite, but I like the first one. And of course, Punch Out. You know, there's many popular titles for the NES. Some good, some bad, but you know, I think the NES is I like the NES because there's so much of a variety for the NES, and the NES is actually my favorite Nintendo console. And here at the very end, I'm going to rank them from least favorite to favorite. So right there, you already know my number one because I just gave it away. But we got a question here. I'm going to answer it real quick. Madison Sierra says, I want to get an NES. I've never had one, but I don't know which one to get. The big square one or the smaller one where the carts go on the top. They have them at my local game store. Alright, Madison Sierra, let me tell you, if you don't know, the big square NES is the original NES. The other one that you're talking about where the carts load on top, that's also known as the top loader. If you'll notice, I'm sure at your local game store that one is a little bit more pricey, but honestly, I think that's the one you should go with. You know how people take out their cartridges when they don't work and they blow in them and they think that it works? I think it works, but I honestly, I don't think I had very many issues with an NES when I used the top loader. I think it was the spring, because you have to, with the big box, when you put the cartridge in, you push it in, and then push down on the spring to get it to load into the system, and then well, you don't have to shut the lid, I don't think. No, you don't have to shut the lid. But I would go with the top loader. And if you've never had an NES, you know, definitely look into it. And just get the popular titles. I mean, if you're not really into collecting, because that can get expensive. And that actually leads right into my next question here. We got Carlos Notorious. Thank you for stopping in, man, and thank you for subscribing. I appreciate that. You asked me, what are my thoughts on some NES prices? I think some of them, Carlos, are actually pretty ridiculous. For certain people who want to collect the entire NES library, this isn't good, because if you're collecting because one day you think you're going to be sitting on a gold mine, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. At least I think so. That's just my opinion. I think if you're a game collector, like I collect games because it's nostalgic to me. These are games that I grew up with, and I like to go back and look at them. I like to play them. It's my go-to. And like, I'm in the middle of collecting every Nintendo 64 game released in North America. And I'll talk a little bit more about that once we get to the 64. But some of those are expensive. But I think Little Samson is like in the thousands at the moment. I think the Flintstones Surprise at Dinosaur Peak is like 600 something. Of course, stadium events, get the heck out of here with that. I mean, if you want to put this in the NES library, I guess you could, but the gray and gold carts for Nintendo World Championships, those are the price of a freaking car. But I wanted a Nintendo World Championship cart. You can get the reproduction cart. Like, I think mine's a reproduction. Mine's the anniversary cart where the winners had signed it. So, I mean, I was happy with it. I paid a little bit, you know. I paid a little bit of good money for it, but nothing like the gold or gray carts, because those are your rare ones. And for reasons, if you don't know, the gold one was a Nintendo Power giveaway, when the gray ones were, I think if you played in the tournament, you were given those. So there's more gray ones than there are gold. But I think some of the prices are a little crazy. Rapture Beyond the Sea, I'm going to answer your question real quick, because it kind of goes in with what I wanted to say. You're asking me, what are my thoughts on reproduction carts? And I know a lot of people are against them, But honestly, I'm not. I'm really not. I mean, let's just say you have every single Nintendo NES game, but you're missing Little Samson, but you don't want to drop $1,000 on a video game you're probably gonna play 3 times tops, okay? But you want that in your collection. And I know a lot of you are probably thinking right now, okay, well, why don't you just get an emulator? Why don't you, download the ROM or whatever? Yeah, you can do that, but for certain people like myself, I like to actually own a physical copy of games. And I know that's phasing out slowly, but I don't see anything wrong with getting a reproduction cart as long as you're not paying a ridiculous amount, because why should you? It's a fake. I mean, yes, it's the real game, but the cartridge is not the original cartridge. But if you're looking just to have the game, because you're getting the game, like I said, you're getting the game, it's going to be in your collection. I honestly don't see a problem with it, just so you don't overpay for a reproduction cart. But anyways, I don't even know what I just said there. I have no idea. But anyways, we're going to be moving on to the next console, the Super Nintendo, also known as the SNES.
When you decide to step up to this kind of power, this kind of challenge, this kind of flying, crashing feeling, when you decide to get serious, there's only one place to come: the games of Super Nintendo. No one else creates this kind of experience, because no one else creates these kinds of games. Now you're playing with power, superpower.
So the Super Nintendo released August 23rd, 1991. And the release titles on launch was Super Mario World, F-Zero, Pilot Wings, SimCity, and Gradius 3. And Super Mario World was actually bundled with the console. The NES was doing well, and Nintendo had they had no plans to create a new console. But with like the Sega Genesis doing great, they were afraid of slipping, so they're like, what the heck, let's bump this thing up to 16 bits. And I mean, the Genesis actually had a big impact on the SNES. The console design was changed because the color scheme for the Super Nintendo had originally like bright colors, very childish looking, while the Genesis had that black and white, silverish, whatever color scheme to it to attract older kids and adults. Like, I know, for example, like, you take the game Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat was, ported on both the SNES and the Sega Genesis, where the Sega Genesis version actually had blood, and the fatalities were, it was similar to the arcade. And where the SNES, they took the blood out. I think they just changed the color of it to clear, so it looks either like sweat or spit or something like that. And they messed with the fatalities. And as bad as it is to say, as wrong as it sounds, with the Genesis keeping the blood and the fatalities, leaving them alone, the Genesis outsold the SNES version. So, but anyway, enough of the Genesis. This is about the Super Nintendo. They actually, at one point, talked about the Super Nintendo being backwards compatible. Like NES games, and I think it would play Famicom games as well. But due to cost, they, of course, scrapped the idea. And the NES was, the NES was still popular. People were still buying NES, and, the original Mario and the original Zelda. People were still buying it. So why? Here's how I think they look at it. Yes, they could have made it backwards compatible, which makes all the fans happy. I'm happy with backwards compatibility. We'll get to that a little bit more once we get into the Wii and all that. But I'm a big fan of backwards compatibility. I think, but how they look at it, they're a business. So yes, people can buy, if they buy the Super Nintendo, they can go and buy the NES you know, Legend of Zelda and play it on their Super Nintendo. But if it's not backwards compatible and they want to play the Legend of Zelda, if they don't have an NES already, they're going to buy an NES to play the Legend of Zelda, and they're going to buy a Super Nintendo to play new games. So they're going to sell two consoles for as long as they can. And I think that's how they look at it. But accessories, I'm not really familiar with the Super Nintendo because I didn't have one growing up. I always had, I know I've said this before, so I'm sorry if I keep repeating myself, but I had an NES growing up, because my childhood is pretty much the PlayStation 1 era and the the N64. That was pretty much my childhood, but I grew up with an NES because I think it was my mom's. It was just always there. We always had an NES, and I played. My dad will still tell me stories where I was playing the NES, and I was actually doing really good at 3 years old. But heck, I remember I played games like Castlevania and I played games like oh god, what is that one? Ghost and Goblins. Dear God, it's a surprise I'm even a gaming fan today for playing, you know, those games at that young age. And of course, I didn't get far. You know, I remember playing The Legend of Zelda and I had no idea what to do. I'm just roaming around and killing things. But anyway, some accessories. Two that can come to my mind really was the Super Game Boy, which was pretty much a cartridge. It went in the cartridge slot, and then you took your little Game Boy cartridges and you put them in. It's hard for me to explain over audio, but anyway, it allowed you to play your Game Boy games on your home TV. So you don't have to look at it at the little screen anymore. You can play it on your big TV. So anyways, there was that, and then there was the Super Scope. Those are really the only two that come to my mind. So like I said, not real familiar with it. I never had an SNES. But I do know some popular titles. I do have an SNES now, and my collection for it, I probably have 20 games at most. But I know some of the popular games like Super Mario World, Super Metroid, Super Castlevania, you got Chrono Trigger, The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, Earthbound, Super Mario Kart, this is the console Mario Kart made its debut on, and Super Mario RPG. I know there's a lot of people who really get into RPGs, and they actually really like the Super Mario RPG game. But I don't have really anything else to say about the SNES. I did have a Sega Genesis. I got a Sega Genesis. How weird is this? I got a Sega Genesis for Christmas. I watched we used to record all of our Christmases when we were younger on the big cam recorders, you know, where you actually put a VHS tape in the side of the camera and it recorded on that. But I remember we actually have it where I got a Sega Genesis. I wanted a Sega Genesis. Our school, like when we would have, like in kindergarten and stuff, when we couldn't go outside for recess, whether it's raining, storming, whatever, snowing, and they wouldn't allow you to go outside for recess, we had a Sega Genesis in the classroom. And I remember we had a wrestling game, WrestleMania, the arcade game. We had Sonic the Hedgehog, and those were my two favorites to play at school. And I asked for a Sega Genesis in like 1998, 99, and you know, way past. I think we were getting ready to come up on the. Or wait, was the Dreamcast out? I think didn't the Dreamcast come out 99 or something like that? But anyway, yeah, pretty much what I'm saying is the Sega Genesis was done at that time, and I still wanted one because that's what we had in school. And I got Sonic, and I got the WrestleMania game for Christmas one year. And that was always the thing with me, though. Like, even though the PlayStation was out, and I had a PlayStation 1, and it looked better, I still like to go back to them old games. And I'm the same way today. But I never had a Super Nintendo. I do think there's some good titles on it. I just named a few. So I am a big fan of Nintendo all around. Super Nintendo is an awesome console, but not as good as the NES in my opinion. May look better, but I don't think it is better. So stay tuned. You will hear my least favorite Nintendo console to my favorite towards the end of this podcast, but we're moving on from the SNES.
You know who lives in the third dimension. You know who is in control. You know who has 4 times the action. You know who feels the freedom. You know who breaks the barriers. You know who stands out from the crowd. You know who everybody's after. You know who. The games of Nintendo 64.
The Nintendo 64, released September 1996, think about this now, there was a lot of people out there complaining that the Nintendo Switch did not have very good launch titles, or very many, and if you look back at the Nintendo 64, they only had 2. Super Mario 64 and Pilot Wings 64 were the only 2 games for the console on launch, and I mean, yeah, Super Mario 64 would keep you busy, kind of like Breath of the Wild. I mean, I'm still playing Breath of the Wild. The game is so large. It's not that I get lost on the map. I get lost or I get sidetracked with so much that you can do. And I look down at the clock and it's like, oh, I've been playing for a couple hours and I haven't really done anything. But yeah, these were the 2 release titles. And Pilot Wings 64. I'm not really familiar with that game. I have played it, but I not enough to know if I really like it or not. But the Nintendo 64 was first known as the Ultra 64. You can find it in like Nintendo Power magazines, and at the first E3 in 1995, it was known as the Ultra 64. But it got its real name, the Nintendo 64, because at one time the words video game meant Nintendo. It was a household name. Like, let's say you're playing video games or something. Let's say you're playing a Sega Genesis and your mom comes in. All right, you need to get off the Nintendo and do your homework, before bed, or hey, it's time for bed, get off the Nintendo. That's just how it was used. And I think Nintendo looked at it as, it's pretty cool. So let's just keep it basic. Let's just keep it there. Nintendo 64. And as basic as it is, it actually has a pretty cool, ring to the name, Nintendo 64. And the nickname N64. I like it. So, still to this day, in my opinion, it has the weirdest and coolest controller. I told you guys earlier in the podcast, I'm collecting every Nintendo 64 game released in North America, and as I'm playing some of these games that I never played because this was another console that I never had, as I'm playing these games, these controls it takes me so long to get a hang of them. And the reason I think it's the weirdest is the layout, and the reason I think it is the coolest because it looks awesome. This thing, here's the thing with Nintendo. Nintendo has never kept the same controller through time. They've always done something different. I mean, if you really look at it, you had the NES, which had your A and B button, and your start, select, and then your D-pad. And then the Super Nintendo moved to 4 buttons on the right. Then the 64, you got this weird thing, looks like it's from outer space. And then on from there, the GameCube controller completely different. Where, like, PlayStation has always kept the same, the DualShock. Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple things added to it and stuff, but it's the DualShock. Um, but anyway, I do think it's really cool. It looks awesome. There was also something pretty cool they did was the different variations of consoles to choose from, different colors, and they had I think the most common one was the charcoal gray. I think, you can find those everywhere. But then you start getting into like the jungle green. I'd like to have a jungle green. I don't have the jungle green. There's ice blue, the grape purple, fire orange. I have a fire orange one and a charcoal one. But like I said, I'd like the jungle green. There was smoke black, watermelon red, and the Pikachu edition. And there was the Toys R Us exclusive. It was gold. Those were all out there. And I think there was a few different ones in Japan. But how cool was that? I mean, and I think that was a really, because I know a lot of people think that just kids play video games, and that could be so wrong. That is so wrong from the truth. It is so wrong from the truth. There were college students, and I mean, I'm sure at this time, what dorm could you go in and not see a Nintendo 64 sitting on the floor? This was the ultimate game night console. I mean, you had the 4 ports. People were playing GoldenEye and, Mario Kart 64. This was your ultimate game night console. And, I just... There were adults buying these. And, of course, if you have the different colors, people are collecting, they collect. It's what it's just what we do. I know that's my hobby, collecting. And I honestly... I would get so bored if I didn't collect. Like, I actually look forward to going out and finding stuff. But anyway, most importantly, to me, this was known as the first Nintendo console to move on from the big power box. You remember those? You remember them big power boxes that took up the whole freaking power strip or the whole wall outlet. The Nintendo 64 was the first one to move on from that and I think it was on the back now. They had like that power, I think it snapped into the back. That was the big power box. And then now with the 64 you had just a regular plug-in, just a basic small plug-in, which was nice because those big power boxes, man, those really blow. Those really blow. Dark Master, what's up, man? We've got frickin' Laser Beam in the chat. Stonewall City, Sydney Martin, One-Eyed Pirates, Planets Align, Turtles fan, and Fins Up 88. Fins Up 88 says, MIA Dolphins, prayers for you, my brother. And 008 Silver Eye asks, what's wrong with Dolphins? Dolphins is fine. Dolphins is just out for the podcast. He had a death in the family, and he and his family need your prayers, and he will be back for the next podcast, so keep him in your prayers, guys. All you guys that are coming in new, remember to keep my boy MIA Dolphins 32 in your prayers. But 296 titles in North America, and like I said, I'm collecting them. I just have a handful remaining. Some of them are expensive, though. Some are pretty up there. I think I have a lot of the expensive ones. I think I got like 2 more expensive ones remaining. But there's lots of racing in this library. Lots of racing. And that's okay, but I mean, I know a couple favorites I know of was, there's Super Smash, there's Donkey Kong 64, Super Mario 64, of course, Mario Kart, all the Mario Party games, which, by the way, which reminds me, during the Mario Party games, the little analog stick in the middle of the controller, people used to, like, kids would, I guess, like, I don't know, anybody who would play Mario Party games, there was, like, a game or something where you had to put the little toggle in the middle of in the palm of your hand and, like, really move it really fast for a mini game, and it was causing blisters. And at one point, I think Nintendo was like sending out gloves or stuff for you to wear for that game, but I don't know, weird. Accessories, you had the expansion pack, which was this little black cartridge with a little red top on it. You needed this for 3 games. Like Donkey Kong 64 was one, Perfect Dark, and The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. You needed the expansion pack to play these games. And I think Donkey Kong 64 actually was bundled with one, because they're like, you know, it's our fault that you need to buy this because you're not able to play it without it. And I think the expansion pack also worked with Resident Evil 2 and enhanced the visuals of like the zombies or the environments. And then there was also the Rumble pack. But all in all, the Nintendo 64 I think was a phenomenal console, and I know that console is childhood memories for myself. I never had one. Neighbor down the road did. I remember going to his house and playing, because I got a PlayStation. I had the choice. You want a PlayStation 1 or do you want a Nintendo 64? And honestly, I went with the PlayStation because this is where Nintendo got criticized. Nintendo got criticized for sticking with cartridges in a time where everybody else was going with CD-ROMs. You had PlayStation, like I just said, PlayStation was CD-ROM, Sega Saturn was CD-ROM, and here is good old Nintendo, and they're sticking to what they know, cartridges. And I know they got criticized for it. I mean, not, you know, it's not that there aren't any, you know, it's not that there's bad games on the 64. Every game's bad because it's a cartridge. No, I mean, there's plenty of good games. Like I said, when I went to my friend's house, we played Mario Kart 64. I loved it. And we played Hey You Pikachu, which I kind of think it sucked. But anyway, the Nintendo 64, another great console for Nintendo. It's iconic. I love it. Still collecting. I will probably do a video when I get all of my games. And looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that accomplishment. So here we have the Nintendo GameCube, released November 18th, 2001. I remember this like it was yesterday. I remember the game that really turned me to the Nintendo GameCube was Luigi's Mansion. And if you remember back, I remember the old Walmart we used to have. When you go to the electronics section, they used to have every game console set up with demos. You could play demos and, you know, look up at the TV. That's something, unfortunately, that is gone now. We don't have that anymore. But I remember going to Walmart and playing Luigi's Mansion, and I loved it. It was, I still love that game to this day. I still love it to this day. The handle on the console was really cool because it was to make it easy for you to take around. Like if you want to go to a friend's house, or you could pick it up and carry it. I mean, it was basic. And I liked it. It's a cube. That's exactly what it is. It's a game console. It's a cube, and it was cute. It was adorable. Which also reminds me, this was the first Nintendo console to move on from cartridges and take on CD-ROMs, and the CD-ROMs were adorable. They were these little, you know, CDs. But Nintendo's always different. They really are. You know, you know, like I said, the controllers, you know, when they're ready to move on to CD-ROM, they're not going to do basic CD-ROMs. They're going to do the little ones. But at E3 2001, like, Nintendo announced the lineup for the GameCube, and they planned to have 15 launch titles. And it included Luigi's Mansion, but several of those 15 titles got delayed. But when you think about it nowadays, because launch titles are so small now, that there's, you know, you don't get a big library of games that's going to come out on launch day. But this also marked the first Nintendo console to not have a Mario game available at launch. But popular titles for the game, I mentioned one, Luigi's Mansion, Super Mario Sunshine, Super Smash Melee, Metroid Prime, Wind Waker, and I think later, there was a Game Boy, or not Game Boy, GameCube of Twilight Princess. That Twilight Princess also was on Wii, but pretty cool Easter egg with the console. I think the GameCube is my second favorite startup screen. My first one, of course, is that original PlayStation. I love that. You know, it's like, you know, and then once you get the PlayStation, so it goes like, you know. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. But my second one is that GameCube one. You know, it's like, that was awesome. But anyway, there's an Easter egg at the startup screen. If you hold the Z button on the one controller as it starts up, it gives you like a different audio sound for that startup. And then I think if you have all 4 controllers plugged in and all 4 controllers are pushing the Z button, you get a different sound. So that's pretty cool. I remember there being 2 top exclusives that were very successful for the Nintendo GameCube. Resident Evil 4 by Capcom and Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes by Konami. And both of those were very fun games. I actually forgot to mention a popular game was Mario Kart Double Dash. I know some people say that's their all-time favorite Mario Kart. I hear a lot of Mario Kart Wii and Mario Kart 64, but I know a few people that really love Double Dash. But the GameCube sold 22 million worldwide, right behind Xbox, who sold 24 million, and way behind the PlayStation 2, which sold 153 million. The PlayStation 2 is another monster. It's on a whole nother level. Get the heck out of here when you're talking about the PlayStation 2. But we're not talking about the PlayStation 2. We're talking about Nintendo, and that was the GameCube. I love the GameCube, and I can tell you right now, the GameCube ranks within my top 3. So that ranking is coming up, so stay tuned for that. Alright, on to the Wii. So the Wii released November 19th, 2006. This is very impressive. Sold 101.63 million worldwide. Now this is Nintendo's best. And I know we were just talking about how PlayStation did 153 million, but this is still phenomenal. I mean, 101.63 million worldwide. Like I said, Nintendo's best. That's incredible. This console focused on motion sensor, you know, being active, and it kind of ignored, pretty much they picked motion sensor over graphics. Because at this time, you know, the Xbox 360 and the PS3 are, you know, they're doing their thing. HD is a big thing. You know, HD's coming out. Which the Wii did not support high definition, which was risky at the time, you know? I mean, you gotta think, you've got these games, they're gonna look beautiful on the Xbox 360 and the PS3, you know, things that we've never seen before. Once again, you know, gaming is upping its game. And here's the Wii, you know, not really paying attention to graphics, but they got this really cool thing going for them. This motion sensor, this is new, you know, it's not, nobody's ever seen this before. Like I said, Nintendo is always different. So with that, of course, you're getting active. They're putting these things in nursing homes. You know, everybody can play the Wii. That is where it basically got its name. However, they did say, like, the W and the II looks like 2 people playing with 2 Wii remotes, but I don't see it. But Wii also... it also stands for, like, as in Wii, meaning the console is for everybody. And that's, like, you know, maybe it wasn't at E3. I'm trying to think here. Actually, it used to be known as the Revolution, and, like, in April 2006 or something like that, they changed the name, like they always do, because the GameCube, I think, was known as Project Dolphin. And, you know, then there was the Ultra 64 and all that. They always changed the name, and they did. They changed the name, and it became the Wii. So, but like I said, you know, this was new. Nintendo's trying something different, and it got a lot of publicity. It was on daytime talk shows, and, you know, it was really getting out there, and everybody wanted one. And there was a shortage for a while when it first came out. Nobody could get their hands on them. But, with that, so many TV screens met their demise because they have those little straps that you put around your wrist, and not everybody used them. To be honest, I hate them. Like, I don't really use them, but there's always that thought in the back of my head, like, what if what if this thing slips out of my hand and goes into the TV? My fiance did it one time, not to my TV. This is when she lived with her parents, and didn't crush the TV, thankfully. I don't think she threw it that hard, but yeah, it just comes right out of your hand. I mean, I've never had that issue, but I do, when I do play Wii and all that, I do really need to start using the strap for the wrist. So, but anyway, 33 titles were available at launch. That is huge. That is huge. I think that is the largest that I know of. I really don't think anything has topped that, which something probably has. I don't know. But 33 titles available at launch. That's incredible. And the PlayStation Move and the Xbox Kinect were obviously inspired by the success of the Wii, and because those have come out, later. But let's talk about, obviously there's the motion control, but here is something that I absolutely loved. Not only were we heading into a time with high definition and all that kind of stuff, graphics were blowing our minds, and the Wii didn't have that, but we were also in a time where you could start buying, stuff digitally. And here is the Virtual Console. The Virtual Console is amazing. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. You could go and, get any games from the NES, the SNES, the 64. There was I think they had Neo Geo games. I think they did. But anyway, the Virtual Console was amazing. And I think I actually got, let me think. They had the original Super Mario Bros. And I picked that up. It's only like $5 at most. And I mean, there's sometimes, if I'm wanting to be a little lazy, I don't want to hook up the NES. I'll just turn on the Wii and I can play Super Mario Bros. You turn the Wii Wiimote sideways and you got an NES controller, kind of. Obviously, the NES controller is way better, but also on their menu screen, they had a weather channel and a news channel. It showed news all across the world, and there was sports, Very, very cool. Very, very cool. But obviously the biggest game, the big favorite for everybody was Wii Sports. If you've played Wii, you have for sure played Wii Sports. I guarantee it. Bowling, you had the tennis. What else was there? Was the baseball, boxing. I mean, and golf, right? Yeah, golf. Bowling's my favorite. Everybody has their own favorite on Wii Sports, but Wii Sports was huge. Everybody loved it, and I mean, the Wii. It's hard to believe that the Wii is now just over 10 years old, and coming up on 11 years, and that's insane to think now that the Wii is old. But yeah, it's insane. So with that being said, we've got one more to talk about. We're gonna get ready to head to it. All right, with the final, this leads us to the Wii U. Like I said, we're not going to talk about the Switch yet. The Switch is still fresh. It's still new. There's no reason for us to even get into the Switch because we don't know a whole lot about it yet. I mean, we know, that obviously it got, you get the name. You can take it as a tablet. You can play it on your, TV by docking it. But we don't, we're not far enough into it. So we're not going to talk about the Switch. We're going to cut it off right here with the Wii U. Now, I don't have a whole lot to say about the Wii U. I know a lot of people look to it as a failure, and in many ways it kind of was. But when I look at the Nintendo consoles, I like them all. I'm a big fan of all of them. I mean, some people think I'm crazy when I say that I'm not really interested in the 3DS and all that. I've had 2 of them, and I've gotten rid of both. I'm just more of a console gamer. I barely use my Switch as a tablet. I use it as, I dock it all the time. And this is where I kind of had a disconnect with the Wii U. First of all, the Wii U released November 18th, 2012. Oh, I forgot to mention for the Wii was backwards compatible for the GameCube. So that was amazing. Good stuff there. But with that being said, what reminded me was the Wii U is backwards compatible with the Wii. And I love that. I love backwards compatibility. It's good stuff. It makes the fans happy. But, first of all, where it kind of got out of touch with me was the gamepad. Yes, it was cool, but do I really need two screens? Like, and this isn't like the Switch. This isn't like you can take this somewhere and play it. You have like a certain distance between, it has to be close enough to the Wii U console to work. So it's not like you could take this thing to work with you and play it on break or take it on a trip on vacation or, unless you brought the console with you. So, I don't know. Some games had maps on the actual gamepad while you looked at the TV and played the game. I think everything should have been like that. All the games should have done that. Like, one I can think of that I really liked for it was the NES Remix games, where they had different challenges for you and all that. And whatever was on my TV screen was also on my Wii U gamepad. So it's like, I don't even need the screen on the gamepad. I'm watching it on my TV. And I don't know, it was just weird. I don't know, that's really what kind of did it for me. Also, the system lacked titles. Like, I don't even think it had a Zelda game, like a new Zelda game. Like, yeah, it came out with, like, Twilight Princess HD and Wind Waker HD. I mean, if you really want to count Hyrule Warriors as a Zelda, I'm talking like, like an Ocarina of Time or a Majora's Mask, or even, well, now it has Breath of the Wild. But at the time, Breath of the Wild, that came out so much later, But anyway, I think it lacked titles for the longest time. Like, popular titles I can think of is like the new Super Smash for the Wii U, the new Super Mario Wii U, Mario Kart 8, but really, like, I think it lacked titles. I want to know when the heck we're going to get another Metroid game. It's like they're not listening. I want another Metroid game. But I really don't have a whole lot to say about the Wii U. I picked up my Wii U very, very late. I want to think I got mine around 2015. Yeah, that sounds about right. But I don't know. When I look back at it, now it's a console I did not need. And if I could go back, I probably wouldn't get one. I mean, now I have it. I'm going to keep it just because it goes in my collection with all my other Nintendo consoles. But back to the Virtual Console, like there was on the Wii. I pretty much used my my Wii U as a Virtual Console. I bought so many games off the Virtual Console, than I actually did for games coming out for the Wii U, itself. I think Zombie U, I think that was exclusive in the beginning, but then Xbox and PlayStation ended up with it, I believe. And even, I don't know if PC got it or not, but, and that's a pretty cool game. That's not bad, but still, I don't know. I just think, this is what leads me into the final. I'm going to rank my top Nintendo consoles from least to best. And least favorite to my favorite. But first, I'm going to give a couple more shout-outs. We got Fred Fazbear, sending prayers for Dolphins. Appreciate that, man. Retro 90s. We got Podcast World, Formatted, Sniper Bobby's in the house. I can't remember if oh, no, I haven't given you a shout out yet, Cave Boy. Thank you for stopping in. Edgar Wilson, Party Pond, and Octogame. I really appreciate you all stopping in. I see some of your questions. I'll get to just a few of them. I'm going to kind of cut this podcast a little shorter than we do the other ones. So, but all of you in the chat right now who are sending prayers to my buddy MIA Dolphins 32, I really do appreciate it, and I know he will too. when he listens to this, I'm sure it will be very special to him that you guys are praying for him and his family. So, okay, so the final. Here we go. Let's see. How many are there? What, 6? NES, SNES, 64, GameCube. Yeah, we got 6 because the Switch would be the 7th. So, starting at number 6, my least favorite Nintendo console is going to be the Wii U. If you could not tell, I didn't have a whole lot to say about it because there's not a whole lot to say about it. It wasn't exciting. I don't know. But anyway, the Wii U comes in at 6th. And 5th place is the Wii. So we're kind of going backwards now. So 5th place is the Wii. Not that I didn't like the Wii. It's just, I don't know. The ones ahead of it's just harder to beat because at number 4 is the Super Nintendo. And I know a lot of you are probably shocked that I'm placing the Super Nintendo at number 4. But because at number 3, I've got the Nintendo 64. Number 2, the Nintendo GameCube. I love the GameCube. And number 1 is the NES. So that's my list. That's my opinion. I love the GameCube. So yeah, like I said, the NES, of course, is my favorite because the NES and the first PlayStation is a toss-up for my all-time favorite console. I really can't pick between the two. I really love them both. And then second place, like I said, the GameCube. I love the Nintendo GameCube. So many good games on that, like the Metroid Prime games. Eternal Darkness is a great game. The Resident Evil remake and Resident Evil 2 and 3 was on that as well. Geez, what else? Metal Gear Solid, Twin Snakes, Luigi's Mansion. The wrestling games were fun on there too. WrestleMania 18 and 19 and Day of Reckoning 1 and 2. Those were fun games. So, I love the GameCube. I love the GameCube. And the 64s, you know, like I said, third. Those are my top 3 right there. So, a couple questions here. I see Sunny Hannah has asked, Prime, what is your favorite game for each Nintendo console? Oh, jeez. Okay, well, let's just go in order of the actual systems like we did for this podcast. So, the NES is the original Legend of Zelda. The SNES, I'm gonna have to go with Super Castlevania. That's a toss-up between Super Metroid and Super Castlevania. But I'm just gonna go with Super Castlevania. The Nintendo 64, probably Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 64, that would be my favorite one for 64. The GameCube, Luigi's Mansion. The Wii, probably Mario Kart Wii. I think Mario Kart Wii was my favorite Mario Kart. And let's see who this is. Flip, thank you for subscribing. I appreciate that. And then the Wii U, I don't know. Probably Mario Kart 8. I would have to go probably Mario Kart 8, but I like Mario Kart Wii over Mario Kart 8. I think Mario Kart Wii was a blast. So, also, hey, the Michael Jackson Experience was fun too for Wii, but that wasn't. No, that wasn't just a. That wasn't a. That was for the PlayStation 3 also, I think, and the Xbox. But so there it is, guys. I hope I did good. Like I said, it's just me by myself today. Remember my buddy MIA Dolphins in your prayers, him and his family, as they lost a loved one. And he is spending time with them. I didn't want to ask him to do the podcast because we can do it. We can handle it. He'll be on the next one, though. We'll get him back in here. We'll be talking about news. But I think we did pretty good. An awesome, you know, go back and look back at the old Nintendo systems all the way up to what we have now, the Nintendo Switch. Hopefully the Nintendo Switch, at this point, I think it's been out for what? Almost 3 months now. So hopefully the Nintendo Switch is a big success because I love Nintendo. I'm a big fan of them. And I like I like to see them be successful. So that's going to do it for me, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you who came into the chat here. You know, it means a lot to me. Be sure to hit the thumbs up on the video. Check out the great sponsor of Primetime 21st Gaming. They are proud sponsors of Primetime 21st Gaming and this podcast, the Primetime Podcast, Catalyst Mints. Order now, guys. The link is in the description. Be sure to go to that link if you're going to buy something. Get the mints, guys. Get the apparel. Doesn't matter. It's all around good stuff. So, thank you all for watching. I'm Primetime 21st, and this has been the Primetime Podcast.